Alright, guys, who's excited for night two? This side's a little weak. Who's excited for night two? I'm so excited to get started for night two. It's going to be a fun-filled night. But hey, I'm missing something. Anybody know where Chase is? I don't know. He's behind there. What?
I'm hiding, Terry. I was thinking about how much I used to love playing hide and seek as a kid. So it got me in the mood. Now you gotta find me, Terry.
Chase, we gotta start VBS.
Not till you find me.
Okay, come here. Let's see. I heard it from back here. Let's see if we can find it. Can anybody go see if they can find it? I found it. I don't think you're really good at hide and seek.
As much as I love playing hide and seek as a kid, I never said I was any good at it. But I got another idea. Let's play tag! Tag it!
Chase, we gotta play tag. We gotta start VBS. These kids have so much to learn about tonight. But hey, you know what, Chase? That was a good thought. You know, because tonight I think we should talk about Jesus as a kid. Like, teach our friends about Jesus when he was a kid.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think that sounds like a good idea because, maybe, just maybe, when Jesus was a kid, maybe he played tag and hide and seek. What do you guys think?
Yeah!
You don't think they invented that
I don't know, Chase. You know, the Bible doesn't really tell us that he played hide and seek or tag as a kid. But I think that would be something really cool to learn after we sing our songs.
yet? Let's all get up.
Everybody up!
I've done this myself.
Now listen, our friend here, he has a really cool dance move for us, okay? I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up. Just a minute. And I'll bring it up.
So let's find adventure, something so radical. The greatest treasure in this world cannot be bought. So new life is found in Jesus. His promise discovery is here to be uncovered. Won't you take a look and see? Wonder Junction, the adventure's just begun. Wonder Junction, discover your awesome song. Wonder Junction, we find that rest is true. Wonder Junction, you're bringing life to you. He's Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. Lord and King, Almighty God, and closer than a friend. His reign goes on forever unto eternity. His here to be discovered. Let's take a look and see. Wonder Junction, the adventure's just begun. Wonder Junction, discovering God's own Son. Wonder Junction, we find that rest is true. Wonder Junction, it'll bring you back to you. Wonder Junction, the adventure's just begun. Wonder Junction, discovering God's own Son. Wonder Junction, we find that rest is true. Wonder Junction, it'll bring you back to you.
Thank y'all so much for not a kid anymore.
All right, well, let's see if these kids have a pretty good memory. Does anybody remember our verse for this week?
Yes.
All right, Miss Elise, start us off.
As the sun to the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised.
Good job, guys.
13-3.
I know it.
Yep, you did.
Don't you love saying that, guys?
It is an awesome saying. And hey, you know, we learned about timing last night. I wonder who we're going to learn about tonight.
I sure wonder who it is. That might be
Man, that might be a hint.
Let's find out.
Well, howdy, partners. You arrived just in time. I was thinking about a really cool animal, and I want you to guess what it is. Let me give you some hints. This animal has soft fur, a great sense of smell, and loves to chew on bones and wag its tail.
My dad?
What do you think it is? Oh, wait. There's one more thing I forgot. An important clue. It can also do this. If you guessed a wolf, then you are correct. Now, you might have thought it was a dog at first. That would have been a great guess, because wolves and dogs are from the same kind, the canine or dog kind. This means that wolves and dogs and other canines, like African painted dogs, coyotes, and jackals, are the descendants of the two dogs that were saved from the global flood on Noah's Ark. There are a few different species of wolf, but today we will be learning about the baby. Even though wolves and dogs are similar, there are also differences between them. One important difference is that dogs often live with people, but wolves are wild. Most wolves live with other wolves. Do you know what a group of wolves living together is called? Yep, a pack. And the name of the game for a pack of wolves is teamwork. Wolves must work together to survive, especially when hunting. In the beginning, dogs ate plants, but now they eat meat in our sin-cursed world. Remember that the cougar hunts its prey all by itself by sneaking up on it? Wolves have a different hunting strategy. They use their excellent sense of sight, hearing, and smell to find weaker prey. Then, the pack works together to tire and confuse their prey by circling it and taking turns running after it at bursts of up to 40 miles per hour. Wolves have great endurance when it comes to looking for food and chasing prey. They can travel 30 miles in a single day. The wolves' great endurance and teamwork help them to hunt large prey like elk, moose, and bison. In order to work together, it is very important for wolves to communicate with each other. And how do wolves do this? By howling. Rally together for a hunt or mark their territory. Sometimes their howling can be heard 10 miles away. They also make lots of other noises like yips, barks, and whines. Wolves also communicate by using body language. Wolves can tell each other if they are playful, curious, nervous, or defensive with their facial expressions or how they hold their bodies. Wolves might seem frightening, but they prefer to avoid people. They are very caring parents towards their pups. Wolves are usually born with several brothers and sisters all at once, and the whole pack works together to help take care of them. Newborn pups drink their mother's milk, but when they get older, adult wolves feed the pups by throwing up meat they have swallowed. Gross! Anyway, some animals, like lizards and snakes, are born already knowing what they need to do to survive. But wolf pups need to be taught by their pack. The adults work together to teach the pups how to find food and water, where to sleep, what to avoid, and how to communicate. We also need to be taught by our families as we grow up. Remember that we learned Jesus came to earth as a human baby? Well, babies grow, and so did Jesus. Jesus was a kid just like you. Today's animal pal, Junior the Wolf Pup, reminds us of the wonder of Jesus' childhood. He likely played with his friends, laughed, cried, and got sick, tired, or hurt. The Bible tells us that Jesus can sympathize with us. That means he knows what it is like to be a human. He also had to be taught life skills, just like us. Jesus was diligent in learning all about his heavenly Father. There are many ways in which Jesus is like us, but there is one very important way he is different. Jesus never sinned. He never disobeyed his parents. He was never unkind to his siblings, and he never stole or lied. Jesus was a kid like you are, and knows what it is like to be a human. But he lived a life without sin so that he could save us. All right, folks, remember to marvel at Jesus, then live like he matters.
Wow, Chase, that was some pretty deep stuff, don't you think?
Woo! Can y'all believe that Jesus was once a kid just like y'all?
Yes.
Then he got old just like me. Well, guys, before we head out to the lesson so you can learn about Jesus' childhood, seeing all that reminded me of one more verse that I wanted to send you guys out on. Can you bear with me a little bit longer for me to read it to you? All right, I thank you for that. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. Luke 2:52. And just like Jesus grew, I think we're all going to grow a little bit tonight when we learn our lesson. So with that, we'll start dismissing. We'll lead with our 4th and 5th grade kids first. Go with Miss Ashley. Not very many. Next will be 2nd, 3rd, 1st. Yep, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. I know my numbers in my order.
Wait.
Next will be 4 years old to kindergarten. You will be going with Sherry tonight. There's Miss Barb. You back there too. You got 5 different plays. Where did you go? You're 5. You probably want to be the 10. Don't get left behind. Go join the group. And then finally, our little one. The rest of you guys just sit here. Don't be hide and seek out. Oh, you're so good.
Evening.
Evening. Good evening.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta tell you, appreciated our lesson last night.
I got one thing. I never remember the video.
I don't know what they're planning back there. They've got something nefarious going on. I'm glad everybody's here tonight. I think you'll enjoy our message. Our speaker this week is James Ferris, the preacher at the Cumberland Heights. Actually, I'm at Cumberland Heights. As of Monday night, he's the preacher at the Central Church, and we're glad he's with us and can be with us. And so we're looking forward to his message. He's back there negotiating the sound system. Did you get your? Oh, you got your earpiece on. Okay. Make sure he knows what he's doing. Trying to do a good job. He's been a good boy tonight. We appreciate it. James, thanks for being with us. Thanks for your hard work to prepare your lessons and the good things you're sharing with our church. But
Thank you.
we're glad to have you guys with us. Thanks for being with us. Give this man your attention, and we'll see you back in a little bit, okay? James,
Thank you.
my brother, my friend,
Yes, absolutely.
my co-worker.
Brother, friend, co-laborer.
Good to see you, brother.
Brother. Love you. Ooh, man, we're way ahead. Okay, there we are. Good evening, everybody. Let me tell you a little bit about my day. I always have a day planned. You know about the plan? There's always a plan. And then what happens to your plan sometimes? It's like, boom, it just blows up. And nothing about the plan goes according to plan, right? And so today I figured I'd have a little bit of time to get ready for tonight. But it started off, my sister-in-law, who was high risk, was scheduled for a C-section in the morning. But instead, she went in labor this morning. So that threw everything into a bit of a tivy. So I get to probably, if not Wednesday morning, it'll be Thursday morning early, drive my wife to her sister-in-law, and she'll be watching their 3-year-old for the next several days while the new mother recovers. So that, with the fact that we are at Central looking to fill a role, ministry job there, the gentleman who's trying out for that position and his wife got to hang out with me all day today. So that was really not part of the overall plan, but it worked into about an 8-hour hang out. So we had quite a day today, quite a day. Anyway, so tonight I'm not doing 10 minutes worth of disclaimers or caveats or anything like that. So we're going to be probably ahead of the game. We are starting our second lesson. And one of the appreciative things I at least have going into this is that I appreciate having an audience that cares to study the topic of the life of Jesus. I don't think you'd be here if you didn't. So the fact that you're here suggests something about you. The fact that you're taking a Monday night to be here says a lot about you, because there are a lot of people in the world who probably aren't at a Bible class right now, but you are. And so I applaud that and appreciate you very, very much for being here. One other thing I appreciate, and I did touch on this last night, was that by the time Thursday evening is over, we will have spent just about 5 hours on the topic and the theme of the life of Jesus. And we're looking at that theme from the perspective that Jesus' life was a life of distinction. His life was different. I've already lived, 20 plus years longer than Jesus. But what he accomplished in that 33 years is just amazing. So his life is distinct, not just with value and purpose and focus, but his life is distinct because of what went into making everything about Jesus, the beginning to the end, what we know about him, why it rises to the top, and why we, the way Paul in Colossians would say that Christ is in all things deserving of the title preeminent. Highest of the high. So why is that? So we're trying to, in this class for the next few nights, endeavor to appreciate why and what makes Jesus so different. So tonight we're going to have a good time with looking at his life of distinction by talking about his childhood. So there you are. That's it. The cat's out of the bag. If you heard them, in VBS a while ago, the cat is out of the bag. We're talking about the childhood of Jesus, okay? So we're going to jump on into this. And truth is, the childhood of Jesus Christ was different, wasn't it? There's something unique about the childhood of Jesus. Now, if I was going to start anywhere, and I understand, and I'll point this out, we have a live stream going. So bless their heart, whoever's watching this has to see me. But if you speak up, your voice would probably carry through to the live stream. That could be a deterrent for some people to speak. At the same time, if you do speak, you can rest assured that the only thing going through is the voice, and you don't have to be seen. So I'm the one that's being seen, okay? So what I want to do is say to you, if there's something you want to say, some question you have, or something that enhances the class, then please, by all means, feel free to throw it out there. So if I were to ask some questions, feel free to blurt out whatever answer you think at the moment, or whatever information you may have to share, okay? And if you don't, that's fine. I don't mind filling in the blanks if ample time goes by and the answer has not been given, all right? But just don't feel bad about the live stream thing. I understand it does cause some people to not want to say much. But here we go. Biblically speaking, here's your first question. Biblically speaking, what is it about the life of the childhood about Christ that's so interesting? I should ask it like this. Do we have a lot of information or a little information? A little, right? A little bit. And so if you're asking a question, why is the childhood of Jesus so unique? It's really because there's so little about it. But what we do have about it, every single time we got some little tidbit about it, it's always amazing because of what's going on. So in reality, when we talk about this, you may have, in some respects, have had a unique childhood. You ever talk to these people who maybe had like a mother and a dad who were in the military, and it seemed like every 9 months or 15 months they went from one place to another, and by the time they get to high school and graduate, they said, I lived in 7 countries before I graduated high school. And you're going, wow, I lived in the same place all my life and I haven't moved once. You know what I mean? And so in that sense, you would say that person in the military family had a unique childhood, right? You'd say that. That's unique because it's different. That means it's against or opposed to what I perceive as being normal. So some of us in here, I did this last night, I said, who in here has ever had a prophesied birth? And we all said, well, not me. So we cannot relate to the idea of having a prophesied birth. What we can relate to, though, is perhaps my childhood was a little bit different. It's probably different than yours. Yours may even be a little bit more elevated in its difference to mine. I'll just say this. My great-granddad was a preacher and an elder. My granddad was a preacher and an elder. And my dad's a preacher. So good well, I had quite the childhood. It's just the reality of it, okay? So we're trying to compare our childhood into the childhood of Jesus Christ. So we've already said this, that the texts about Jesus Christ's life are very, very few. There are not many passages in the New Testament that say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus as a baby or as a child or as an adolescent. There are 3 of those. And if you're going to break down the childhood of Jesus, you can probably look at five major things, okay? Childhood of Jesus would involve his birth, right? The birth. The childhood of Jesus, now we're talking about biblically speaking, the childhood of Jesus involves him being born in a manger. Okay, so the birth of Jesus, and then instantaneously, we have the visitors, don't we? People come to see the baby. The first group was whom? Now, the shepherds are out there in the fields watching sheep, and the angelic host begins to sing, and everybody is amazed, and these shepherds come in and they see baby Jesus. But that's not the only visitor, was it? A little bit later, we have the wise men, right? So we have the visitors. Now, right after the visits, the third part of this is his flight into Egypt. Remember that? What's the one thing King Herod's trying to do? Kill them off. We don't want those babies taking my role. They're not taking my position. And so we're going to do everything in my power to kill them off and make sure they don't grow to become, king, preemptive king. All right, so we have the flight to Egypt. Told the dream, it's okay now, Herod's dead, come on back. So they go home, and where does Jesus grow up? Jesus of Nazareth. All right, so there's your 4th part. After the childhood, which we know about that much on, we all of a sudden jump into another scene. Many years have passed by, and now Jesus is a whopping 12 years old, and he is found in the temple of God, and he is confounding the rabbis. All right? So that's your 5 parts. That's 5 parts to the childhood of Jesus Christ. Now, by the way, and this is the fun part for guys like me and I know Doug there have been some people over the years that have tried to fill in the gaps. And whether you've ever heard of this or not, who in here has ever heard of like the apocryphal books, the Apocrypha? You've heard of them, right? If you get yourself a good specific kind of Bible, they have those in there. But who in here has ever heard of, besides Doug, the pseudepigrapha? Okay. All right. Well, very good. The pseudepigrapha, you can already tell by the word if you know anything about etymologies and such, but pseudo means what? If something's pseudo, it's false, right? It's a false. Pigrapha deals with writing, pseudo writing. So there's a sizable library of these pseudo writings that came about later on that claim to be, okay, watch this, claim to be written by somebody who was there. All right? So if you have like Peter and Paul, and you got James, you got John, and then what happens by the end of the 1st century, right, they're all dead and gone. All right. So then let's say that you go ahead 100 and 150 years, 200 years in the future, and then somebody over here writes a story and they claim, well, I'm Paul. And then what happens is they take this story, claiming it to be from the Apostle Paul, and then 1,000 years later over here, or maybe 1998, somebody finds it and go, oh, we found a book the Apostle Paul wrote, and they forgot it, and they never put it in the Bible. That's what you got going on. All right, so it's that concept that deals with the emphasis of the pseudepigrapha. And there is a size of, like I said, a lot of books written claiming to be inspired by God or by an apostle, something like that. So there are these books that 3rd century, 4th century tried to fill in the gaps about a life of Jesus that we never read about. Okay? Now I'm just going to tell you a few of those stories so you can get the idea of just how fanciful we're actually talking about here, okay? These are people who said this is what Jesus was doing when he was a kid, okay? There's one called, these are infancy gospels. These are good news writings that try to fill in the gaps about the life of Jesus when he was a boy, because biblically, we just don't have any information about him. Not really. So one is called the Gospel of Thomas, and it tells about, there's several stories, and one of the stories is that Jesus is there in school one day, and the rabbi's telling Jesus what to do. Jesus doesn't want to do it, and so the rabbi comes up and begins to kind of discipline Jesus, and Jesus doesn't like to be corrected, so he causes the rabbi to wither and die. Now, could you ever imagine that being considered as part of what we see in the biblical text? That's why we call that kind of thing pseudepigrapha. It's not real, it's not true, but some people say, well, they left it out of the Bible for pretty good reason. And that's a good reason. It doesn't coincide with who we know Jesus to be. So you have a few more stories like that, and I'm not going to go into them all, but like Jesus is as a child playing hide and seek with his friends, you know, and he just snaps his fingers and appears somewhere else. You know, delusional sort of stories like fairy tale kind of stuff like that. Or that when Mary would do the laundry, these are the stories, Mary would do the laundry, and when she would hang out Jesus' garments, maybe a little friend of his would be blind and would be passing through and just happen to, you know, walk through the laundry. All of a sudden his eyes are healed because he happened to touch the garment of baby, you know, of young Jesus. These are the kinds of things we're talking about. So the pseudepigrapha are out there, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. There were people within 200 years, you know, talking about the life of Jesus as a child because they're trying to fill in gaps that we just did not have. Okay, now, here's the kicker. Sometimes we can fill in the gaps ourselves. There are some things we know about Jesus' childhood. I know he had a mother. What was her name? That's right, Mary. Thank you. We know he had siblings. How many think you have? Have you ever thought about it? I know of at least 4. I don't have a problem. Sometimes I question it, but at least 4. We're not really told about the sisters, and that's where it gets into a question mark. Some have speculated he had as many as 7 siblings. But you have to remember this too. They're half siblings. He didn't have a physical father, parentage, through Joseph, so anyone born to Joseph and Mary later would have been considered as a half sibling, right, to Jesus. So I know he had a mother, I know he had some brothers and sisters, quote unquote, and I also know he had a stepdad. Isn't that right? So when you look at it like that, you're thinking, who in here could say, pretty normal, right? Pretty ordinary. And I would say, you're probably right. This looks very, very ordinary, but the whole part of this week is to say that the conclusion we reach when we read the biblical text is that Jesus' childhood was absolutely unique. Average, but unique. And it's based on the 3 places that we learn about Jesus as a child. Okay, so here's the thing we really want to deal with. And this is what I want you to really kind of stretch your mind a little bit from. You ever given it any thought about, here's this baby Jesus, you know, I need my bottle or whatever. I need a meal. How much did he know? Right? He is flesh. He is mortal. He's also deity. He is God. So here's what the questions we start asking ourselves. Here he is as a baby. What does he know? Did he have above average knowledge? One of those pseudepigraphers, by the way, talks about how Jesus in the manger was telling his mother, "Hello, Mary, by the way, I am the Son of God." And you know, it talks like that. So did he do that? Was it like that at all? You know, those are the questions we have, right? And how was Jesus with his friends? How was it when he played hide and seek or tag? What did he know? What did he not know? Did it take a while before he came of age to recognize, hey, there is something about me that is different? You know, what was it? So I wrote down here, was he aware of his position? Was he aware of his point in life? Did he know his mission from birth? You know? Did he figure out his purpose? I mean, those are the kinds of questions that we have to ask as we look at a lesson like this. And now here's my happy place for us. The good thing about the lesson that I'm going to give you tonight is this, that out of the three places, his birth and receiving the visitors, his flight to Egypt, and his being 12 years old in the temple, every single one of those would have given him at least an environment in which he knew something about himself was different. And that's just from the external. Okay, in other words, he could surmise, okay, these wise men are giving me gifts, and each of these gifts has a symbolic nature to it. Why are they doing that to me and not everybody else? Okay, that would be a way by which he could ascertain that something about me is unique. That's just from looking at it objectively like that. Same thing with his flight to Egypt, because out of Egypt I've called my son, right? And that would be the 12-year-old in the temple when he's confounding the rabbis. How could a boy of that nature make the intellectuals of that day feel like they were secondary or inferior to this little boy? And so there's always going to be, the idea is, how does a child grow into learning that he did have a purpose distinct above everyone else? And that's what we're going to try and figure out tonight. All right? So before we get into this, anybody got anything you want to say? Feel free to do so. If I don't know the answer, Doug is here. Right, Doug?
If I don't know it, I'll make it up.
That's right. Make it up on the spot. All right. All right. So you have a handout, and this is a three-parter, essentially. And these are the three aspects to the life of Jesus as a child that we always have to come to. Because this is, by the way, this is it. You don't have any more texts in the Bible that talk about Jesus as a child. This is all. All right? So what we're going to do first is we're going to deal with, he's a different kind of baby. There was something different about him. Now, I'm not going to say he changed his own diapers. I'm not going that far. But I'm saying he was a different kind of baby. What we have going on with Jesus was that he immediately has guests, and the guests come to him. And then as the guests continue coming to him throughout his young life, they also gift him. They give gifts to him. And the kicker about these gifts is that they have a symbolic meaning that's suggestive of who was receiving the gift and why. So, just for a second, I know it's June and it's not December, but December will be here before we know it. What's going to happen? We're going to see all these manger scenes, right? All these nativity scenes. Can you tell me, is there anything about the nativity scene that's traditional? And when you compare that traditional nativity scene to the biblical text, is there anything about the biblical text that suggests we've got it wrong? Anybody? And if so, what would it be the first one? Potentially.
The Magi didn't show up right when he was born.
Very good. Appreciate it very much. The Magi are the wise men. The wise men come, we'll see in a second, later than the shepherds. Shepherds see a baby in a manger. The Magi do not. There's something distinctly different about those two scenes. And at the very same time, how many wise men do we say came? We say three. Why do we say three? There's three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And obviously, we're thinking that one would bring gold, one would bring frankincense, one would bring myrrh, and that we can only therefore have three. I came across the other day, a 12th century I'll just call it a bit of art, a 12th century bit of art. And it actually showed 5 wise men. And I was going, all right, I've always wanted one. Show me something that suggests there was more than just 3. And there was 5 in this picture from the 12th century. So at least that suggests to you that they didn't necessarily think in the 1st century there was only 3. Now, could there have been 3? Absolutely. But there could have been 2. And 2 could have brought, one could have brought 2 gifts. So we just don't know. But we always want to go with the 3 concept, okay? So what I want you to do right quick is go ahead and open your Bible to Matthew chapter 2. We're going to read just a couple of verses out of this. And I am going to try to keep us in the Word a bit more than me just referencing it as I did last night. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 and verse 11. And this really pinpoints what our sister there just got through saying, okay? So here goes. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. So they're on the way now to visit baby Jesus, right? Baby Jesus. So skip down to verse number 11 and look at when they finally get there, right? They finally get in to see Jesus. And notice it says, and going into the house, see that? Going into the house. It's a display difference. We saw the shepherds at the manger scene. We see the wise men at a house scene. And instead of using the term baby in the manger, we now use a different term. When they saw, verse number 11, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They fell down, and look at this. They worshiped this child. Can you imagine? Wise men from the east worshiping this child? And they opened their treasures, and they offered him the gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. So the 2 things, if you're reacting to this, based on what our society pushes on us in late November and December, is 3 wise men at the manger scene of Jesus' birth. And it's not the biblical case, is it? So what we want to talk about really, really fast is the 3 gifts. I've already said twice that the 3 gifts had a symbolic meaning behind them. So you always wonder, hey, would you like to receive a gift of gold from anybody coming to say hi to you? I would. I'd take it, right? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Those are your 3. If you were just looking, trying to figure out, okay, what do these gifts mean? What would you say the symbolic nature of gold? What does gold bring to your mind when even we receive gold? What do you think? What? Wealth. Okay. Up a notch. It's the finest of the fine. Biblically speaking, when we try to attach gold to something significant, what is it we generally attach it to? Royalty and divinity and God. So when you take the idea of gold and just put it right there in that category, we're talking about something that has a kingly emphasis, something that has a divine emphasis, something that is godly. Okay? What have they done with this child? They've worshipped the child. They're giving that child gold. The child has received a gift and has great potential. All right? Step over here to the concept, right, of frankincense. Oh, I forgot the answers are behind me. That's okay. All right, so now we have frankincense. What's that oftentimes symbolize? It goes back to the Jewish worship of that day. It goes back to the temple worship. It goes to the concept there of the priest. It goes to the concept of sacrifice. And you just received a gift of frankincense. There's a symbolic meaning behind that. And then what about myrrh? Myrrh is interesting because there's lots of other things. But one of the things that myrrh was associated with was anytime the prophetic office was being conferred, they received myrrh. Myrrh had something to do with that whole symbolism. Yes?
I'm not sure. Excuse me. I'm not sure I know what myrrh is.
Yeah. My wife's one of these, what do you call those oils? Essential oils. I think we got gold, frankincense. Well, not gold. We got frankincense and myrrh in our house. Anybody know anything about myrrh itself? Is it more of a, what do we know?
Didn't they use that in burials?
It can, yeah, definitely can be used in the burial process. I tell you what, somebody Google myrrh. What you got, Tommy?
Well, there are claims
It's had anti-inflammatory properties.
Okay.
We had that.
Keeps your liver.
And the
tight.
frankincense,
Okay.
even though they were used as like a perfume, so,
Yeah.
pharmacology, they told us that it had antibacterial and
Mhm,
antifungal properties.
Qualities
So
of that nature.
frankincense
Yeah.
and myrrh were both, they both had
Yeah.
medicinal properties.
Right. I know that there's a distinction between regular frankincense and then sacred frankincense. If you buy a little vial of sacred frankincense, it's very, very expensive. So the bottom line here, you got three bottom lines. Number one, the gifts received are not just Dollar Tree gifts. You know what I'm talking about? Didn't just cost $1.25 at Dollar Tree. They're substantial gifts. Number two, there is a symbolic message behind each one from a biblical perspective, which is what I've been trying to hold on to. And number three, there was a quality of usage, a practical quality of usage for these oils that could have been administered in a more, like I said, lifestyle, practical kind of way. So medicinal qualities or whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot going on here than just, here's gifts and they walk off. There's something behind them that matters and actually means something, okay? So I want you to hold on to at least the three, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, from the biblical perspective. How would we receive that? Okay, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit, okay? So let's go ahead, since we're in our Bibles, okay? Look at Matthew chapter 2 and look at verse number 2, okay? So here's my question for you. We already read verse 1. Well, what did we read? We read verse 1 and 11. So these wise men come from the east into Jerusalem, and look at verse 2. They say out loud, right? Where is he who was born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Well, guess who's listening on the sideline over here? Herod. Okay, it's your APB. It's an all-point bulletin. Herod's ears get really wide, really quick, and he's hearing that because they're looking for the king. Now, who is the king right now? Come on, people. Herod is. And they're looking for the king. That's not going to bode well with a guy like Herod the Great. We won't get into all that right now. But the bottom line is they're searching not for a savior, right? They're not searching for a spiritual savior. They're searching for a physical king. All the way to the very end, when Jesus had already been crucified and buried. Remember the road to Emmaus? Remember the guys are walking along and the resurrection appearance, and they're preaching about Jesus to Jesus. They don't even know that's Jesus. But one of the things they said, oh, we had hoped that he would be the one to redeem Israel. You know what they're looking for? They're looking for a king. And they think that the king, on the throne of David is supposed to somehow pull them back away from Rome and give them their sovereignty back, right? That's what they're looking for. And that was early Matthew 2, all the way through Luke chapter number 24 right here, okay? So, think about this for a second. Wise men come in and say, hey, where's the king? King's like, I'm right here, buddy. They're like, no, the king born. We want to know. And all of a sudden you get this prophecy stuff, and you're like, oh, hold up. And Herod starts talking to the rabbi, wants to figure out, what are they talking about here? And the rabbi said, well, it's going to happen in Bethlehem of Judea, and that's where he's going to be born. And so Herod's infuriated, right? Now, when you go to John chapter 1, verse number 49, remember Nathanael, when he comes upon Jesus, Nathanael says, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. See that? So from the beginning, the wise men are looking for the king. At the end, they're still looking for a king. Over here in John chapter 1, Nathanael says, you are, in fact, the king. Now, Matthew chapter 2, who is Jesus the king of? Go ahead and look at your text right there. Look at verse number 2. Where is he who has been born, king of the Jews? Where's the king of the Jews? All right, you see that right there? Now here's the kicker. In 33 years from this moment, you know what's going to happen? You got some high priests who are going to entrap Jesus, right? That's what they're trying to do. Trying to trick him, trap him into saying something that they can use against him to Rome, so they have a legal reason now to put him out of their misery. Going to get rid of Jesus. They tried to entrap him with treason. And do you remember what's going on in John chapter 19? I know it's Luke 24 is right here, but John 19 backs right there up by it, and they crown. Remember, after the scourging, what do they put on his head? A crown, right? It's a crown. Crown of thorns, but it's a crown on the left. Put a robe on him, right? And then Pontius Pilate makes that big statement, very same chapter, verse number 19. Jesus of Nazareth, what of the Jews? King of the Jews. Are they trying to say he really was the king? Or are they trying to humiliate him because he claimed to be king? I mean, think about a king who's on a cross, bleeding and dying, so helpless, nobody's there to pick up the slack for him. Does that look much like a royal king to you? So Rome essentially thinks we got him. Now, I know Rome, by the way. Rome doesn't want anybody to pretend as if they are more potent than our emperor over there. Okay? Jews, they're going to play around like, we care about maintaining our allegiance to Rome, but in reality, Jews didn't want Rome there either. So the Jews are playing a pretty good game right here of going up against Jesus, and they got to figure out a way to manipulate the system so they can get the approval of Rome to get Jesus out of their hair. And the one thing they do really is they're going after him based on his being king. Because if there's another king besides Caesar, we got rebellion. We can't have that. So in all of this, oh man, I should have been moving. The question, oh wow, sorry about that. So the question right here is, according to what we know about Jesus, was he prophet, priest, or king, or God? What was he? He's all three of these, wasn't he? And when you go and look at those three gifts, I see how those three gifts all symbolize something about Christ's very nature as prophet, priest, and king. They all went along with something about his being established even early on as king. And yet he also has the connotation of priestly service. Isn't he our high priest, right? Priestly service, as well as this concept of being the one who speaks on behalf of God, which we get in the prophetic office. So all of this, now here's the big kicker. Here's the point. Even before he was ever walking or talking, he was in an environment where he could learn that he was different and unique, special, and had a mission. And something about him carried a position that could be learned just by what's going on around him. All right, does anybody have any comments about that first one that we've just done? All right. If I got till 15 after, I think we're doing pretty good today. All right. So what we're going to talk about now is he's a different kind of baby, wasn't he? Different kind of baby. He's also a different kind of child. He had a different kind of childhood right here. So when Herod says, I want him gone, what happens? What happens? Give me a generalization here. What happens when Herod says, I want the babies dead?
His parents.
All right.
Parents sent him to Egypt.
All right. Soldiers go out there and start slaying babies, and they were warned in a dream, right? Don't get out of here as fast as you can. And they leave. They go south. They go to Egypt. Now, here's where it starts getting fun. The flight, we call it the flight. They weren't flying, but they're flying away. The flight down south to Egypt is for the safety of the baby, right? Safety of the baby. But it's also at the very same time to protect the king. Isn't he the king? And we learned that already? So we have to protect the baby, protect the king. All right? So here's where it starts getting interesting. I gave you last night that first big handout, and on the upper left-hand corner of that, I had something there about dual prophecies. This is in Hosea chapter 11, one of those places where you have a dual prophecy, okay? And if you're already in Matthew chapter 2, that's great. I'm going to skip down to verse 13 through 15. And here's what it says. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother and run or flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill. Oh, here we go. Listen closely. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. And you're going, oh. So hundreds of years before Jesus had to run away from Herod, God already knew he was going to have to do that. He spoke to Hosea, and Hosea wrote it down, out of Egypt I've called my son. Isn't that amazing? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Why would Matthew chapter 2 connect us to a text in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1? And you're saying, well, James, you already explained it. It's because it's a prophetic fulfillment. That's, of course, the reason why. So what we're going to do real quick is go back to Hosea. Now, I'm going to skip ahead real quick, and I'm going to go to this so you can read with me, okay? This is the Hosea text. When Israel was a child, I loved him. And out of Egypt, I have called my son. But the more they were called, the more they went away from me. They sacrificed to the Baals, and they buried incense to the images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arms, but they did not realize it was I who healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. To them I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed them. That's God talking in Hosea hundreds of years before Jesus was ever born, okay? Then you read that Matthew 2 text. Now let me go back for a second. We might as well leave it right there. Why did Matthew connect those two? And if you read them, if you really read them, you might be in quite a quandary, because you come to a pretty quick conclusion, because every one of us in here are pretty reasonable, and we realize when we look at this context and we look at this context, there's not much that really parallels except the concept of Egypt. There's one more, but really the only connector we see right now is the idea of Egypt. Now, I will give you that one more, and that's what's going to make this make, of course, a little bit more sense. But do we, if you're going to do a connect the dot, kind of page in a kid's playbook, would these dots even connect? That's the question. And some people say, no, they don't connect at all. Matthew was reaching. He's really stretching, trying to make something happen right here. Because, obviously, Hosea chapter 11, verses 1 through 4, obviously is talking about Israel, right? That's what it's talking about. And I don't have it up there, and it's difficult to get to it again, but here's the idea. Oh, let's go. This is our timeline right here. Jesus is born there. Here's Hosea. Hosea's talking about something that happened way back over here, okay? So, Jacob's sons, right, have to go down to Egypt because that's where the corn is. We got a famine going on. There's corn in Egypt, right? Get down there and get that corn. Well, instead they get down there and they wind up bringing dad, and they wind up staying, and then Joseph, I'm your brother. Oh, man, we're so happy we're back together again. And then everybody starts kind of dying off. There's a Pharaoh that comes up that doesn't know Joseph. And now we have this Hebrew nation starting to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they become enslaved. Hosea is writing about a time when out of Egypt I have called my son. When Israel finally has Moses lead them out of the land of Egypt, well, God called his son out of bondage. So Hosea is looking back at that. And then Matthew comes along. Okay? Jesus' birth right here. Matthew comes along, and Matthew shows that Jesus is rooted to the Old Testament, right? That's one of the things Matthew does. Matthew quotes from Micah. Matthew quotes from Jeremiah. Matthew quotes from Isaiah over and over and over. And right now he's quoting from Hosea. And the kicker about the Hosea is this is intentional. Matthew is no dum-dum. He understands exactly what he's doing right here. And it's more than just connecting Israel and Egypt and Jesus to Egypt. There's more to it than that. So the question is, at this point, What is it? Well, the parallel is that both of them got out of Egypt, right? We all understand that. Israel finally the Hebrew nation gets out of Egypt, and Jesus Christ ran down there too, and Jesus was told by God it's safe to come on back, and finally Jesus comes out of Egypt as well, right? So Matthew uses that text because he understands that Jesus embodies the same action, if you want to call it that. That's what Israel went through to get out of Egypt too. So now we're saying, okay, there is some kind of parallel there, and we appreciate that. Matthew is making an analogy of Jesus to Israel. He's using something that they went through, that they experienced, that Jesus experienced too. So now we're both on the very same page. So here's where it gets fun. Who initiated Israel being saved from Egypt? Who initiated it? God did. Go to Exodus 4. What was it God told Moses to tell Pharaoh? Let my son, Israel, let my son, the nation, the Hebrew nation, let them go. I want my son to come out and worship me. See that? That's way back in Exodus 4. God initiates the action of allowing them or getting them out of captivity, out of bondage. Who initiated the action of getting Jesus out of Egypt? God did. Isn't God the one over in Matthew chapter 2 that gives them this dream or this statement that Herod's been dead, you can come on back? Did God love Israel? God saved Israel. Did God love Jesus? God saved Jesus. And when you start looking at what Matthew is saying about Jesus is, Israel, you can relate to the fact of being brought out of a place because God saved you. And Israel, you need to see Jesus as one who has been brought out of a place and God saved him. And he's been saved so he can save you. And that's where the chill bumps should start popping up on your arms. Because God is trying to point out the fact of something that could relate. Jesus embodies the concept of Israel. So when you look at Matthew, you got two different times when God says something right there about the Son. Remember the baptism of Jesus in Matthew 3:17? This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased, right? If God says, out of Egypt I called my son and this son pleases me, you need to listen to the Son. When you go to Matthew chapter 17 with the transfiguration on the mount, remember the words of God there? This is my beloved Son, hear him. If Israel's going to listen to God and be saved, Israel needs to be listening to God right now. If they want salvation, they need to listen to the Son. Because the Father said so. So there's a whole lot going on here, but understand, when we talk about he had a different kind of childhood, God sent Jesus into this world to do for somebody else, including me, what I could not do for myself. Aren't you glad? Different kind of baby, different kind of child. His childhood. If you talk to him, when he was 10 or 11, hey, what'd you do when you were younger? Well, I tell you what, the king tried to kill me, but I got out of there, and later on I came back. Hey. See, that's what we're talking about, uniqueness and a purpose behind every bit of this. So Matthew's trying to say Jesus fills up the Old Testament. Jesus in other words, he's not trying to give Hosea a new meaning, because in context we know exactly what Hosea meant. But when you look at how that applies to Jesus, we're able to say, oh yeah, this is a beautiful type, antitype parallel to Israel themselves. All right? So in that sense, flight for safety and to protect the king. Now the king can go back to his land. You see that? Has all the makings of a really, really, really good story there. Okay? Comments or questions about anything we've said? Anybody?
Question.
Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So, how about the Passover?
About to get to it.
Oh, okay.
That's our final statement because it's the last thing we see of him doing in his childhood.
Okay.
So here we go. Whoa! There's a step back there. Y'all watch that when you come up here, okay? You don't want to fall backwards. All right, so now we get into a different kind of youth. He's a different kind of a young man, okay? So a different kind of adolescence. Jesus is here in the 12th year of his life. He's in preparation mode. And there's when you have a 12-year-old, we had a funeral today that we fed the family. And after the funeral was over, I went and talked to one of the members of the family, and he took his grandson, who I've never seen before, 12 years old, 12-year-old boy. He said he was 12 years old. I was like, oh, that's 12, you know. And he kissed him on the forehead, and the 12-year-old boy looked up at granddad and he said, I love you, and walked back to mom and dad. I was going, oh man, this is just beautiful, right? And what you're gaining from this is he's old enough to discern. He knows emotion. He's figuring some things out. That's in 2025. Now go back to this segment right here, and you've got a young man who's been growing, and he has been preparing. Now our question is, what's he preparing for? How much does he know, you know, by the time that he is 12 years old? When he's in the temple, it's pointing to some kind of purpose. Now I'm going to say something right now. I'm going to say it needs to be said. I'm going to say it. I was going to say it originally a little later. When a child was 12 years old, when a young male child is 12 years old, that is their final year of preparation for service in synagogue religious life. Okay? So if you are, in other words, if you are a good law-abiding citizen, good law-abiding traditional Jew, you're training your child, right? And you're training that child to take part in the religious life in the synagogue, you know. By the time that child's 13, they're ready and they're doing. So you have this pivotal moment here. We call it like adolescence for our kids today. He's in a pivotal moment. You know, what's he going to do with his life? What choices is he, of course, going to make? So everybody turn to Luke chapter 2. This is where we get into into Jesus right here, being in the temple. All right? And it is Passover. Very, very important. The yearly Passover. What's going on in these verses? The yearly Passover. Mom and dad come in. They bring their child. Okay, children. They bring Jesus with them. They partake in the feasts and festivities of that, and then the parents go back home. You may remember how many days it took them to realize that they weren't with Jesus anymore. It took them 3 days. I got to thinking, how would that be for us with cars? And if the average, and I know it can fluctuate, but if the average rate of walking for a Jewish family in the first century was 20 miles a day, they've been going 3 days, right, before they finally noticed, well, that's a pretty good walk. And then you got to turn back around and go back, find him, and then return. So you got to you multiply that out by 2 or 3 times, and if that was me, I'd be pretty unhappy with my son. So it would be equivalent, and I don't know if this is right or not, but equivalent to you and I getting in our car and driving straight through all the way to Orlando, and then looking in the back seat and realizing we forgot our child, and having to drive all the way back and get it. See, now you're thinking, oh man, the fatigue and the worry and the concern, because you have to hope that you find your child in safety when you finally get back, right? All that's going on. Okay, so they finally look for Jesus. They come on back after the 3rd day, and where do they find Jesus? Where is he? He's in the temple, and you're sitting there thinking, wow, what kind of little rebel is he? Is Jesus a rebellious youth? That's not the answer, is it? So everybody turn to chapter 2, verse number 51 and 52. It says there, they did not understand the saying. I want to go, let's see. All right, let's go back to verse 47. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said, Son, why have you treated us this way? I can hear my mom. That sounds just like my mom. Why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress. And he said to them, why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house? And they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all these things in her heart. All right? Let me see if I missed anything I wanted to say. All right, yeah, there we are. Okay, so we already said that too. So here we go. He's missing, right? What kind of emotions do you have right now? Let's think about it from a parental, and let's think about it from the child's perspective. How are parents feeling? Terrified? Worried? Concerned? Afraid? Scared? Oh, sorry, that's them. Parents are all those. How's Jesus feeling? Doesn't seem like he's concerned about it, does he? Doesn't have the same concern as a parent would. So his emotion seems to be, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. It even goes a step further. We're not just talking about synagogue worship, are we? We're talking about temple worship. We're in the house of God. And this is my Father. I must be about my Father's business. So all those little aspects of, I've just received three gifts from wise men, and they have symbolic nature. I've just ran for my life to be protected, and now God has called me to go back home, and I've been protected by the Father because I am king. Those are the kinds of things that create an environment as he's growing up to appreciate there's something about him. And that has, and like I said, all this is objective out here. That has nothing to do with what he's actually thinking or feeling. I'm not trying to really endeavor to figure that one out. But what we can see right here is, when it comes down to it, this is the only text we've got of Jesus from baby until he gets to the ministry. This is it. Don't know anything else about Jesus as a youth, as a child. I've seen him here and I've seen him here, but he's really, really young. Now he's got personality. Now he's got cognitive development. He's got something about himself that is great and it is unique. Now here's my question for everybody in here. Is his family law-abiding? Do they follow the law of God? Absolutely they do. That's why they, as their custom is, come yearly to the Passover there. So the point that Luke is making, I think, and this is just one of the many, but one of the points is, if the religious leaders choose one day to kill this young man, it's not because he didn't have good parents, and it's not because he was a bad boy. So if he's going to die, there's going to be some other reason for it. Go ahead.
And I'm looking at the NLT.
Yeah, that's fine.
But Joseph and Mary had to know that Jesus was a special child.
Yeah.
It was for a purpose. They were known.
Yeah.
Mary knew that.
I'll definitely
So
agree.
they shouldn't have been surprised that he was in his father's house. When
Right.
He said, I didn't know, I must be in my father's house.
Yeah.
And then the NLT says, but they didn't understand what he meant.
Right. So the idea would be it should not shock us to find him here.
Right.
That would be the idea. And yet they're like, and they're fatigued, they're tired. I mean, there's there's all kinds of physical possibilities here. But here he is in preparation for his future religious life, and he's establishing now an identity. And as a young child, who in here was like baptized as a young child, maybe 9 or 10 years old, you were saying, I'm going to serve God the rest of my life. And you meant it then. You know what I mean? This is Jesus making a declaration to the world. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to be. This is my future. And this is who I will be for the time that is yet to come. Okay? So, yeah, go ahead.
You asked a few minutes ago, when did he know?
Yeah.
It had to be before age 12.
Right. There's something
How
happening.
much before, we don't know.
I can't tell you how many papers, I know Doug too, I can't tell you how many papers I've read about at what point and moment in time did he know everything, Was it a progressive, slow, progressive, until he finally recognized who he was? Did he not know anything until he was baptized? It's things like that. And there's so much of that. But I'm pointing out that his entire environment as a baby to a child to 12, the environment says there's something about him different. And if I can see that, couldn't he see that? That's the question. All right. So picture this real quick. Luke chapter 2. He's confounding the rabbi. Now I put it up there. In 18 years, 20 years, in 20 years from now, some of the same people maybe in this group will want to kill this guy. Think about that. So what happens between now and then?
They may remember this day.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
They'll really want to kill him when he says, "I am the temple."
Right. Right. That's definitely part of it. He throws words like that around. They're going to want to take him out. You know. Yeah. Good point. Good point. All right. So as we close this one out, Jesus loves the law, right? He loves the law. Keeps the law perfectly. Jesus is 100% man. Jesus is 100% divine. Jesus seems like, even here, as a 12-year-old, knows his purpose, has a unique awareness of his sonship. I'm in my Father's house. Must be about my Father's business. So we seem to understand that. And if you will, just turn the page in your Bible from Luke chapter 2 to Luke chapter 3, 18 years passes by that quick. So that's what I'm saying. We don't have a lot about the youth of Jesus' lifetime. We have 3 ideas: birth and what goes on with that, the run to Egypt and what goes on with that, and then his being in the temple. After that, he's a man. Next time we see him, he's going to be baptized by John the Baptizer in the River Jordan. And we're going to hear God say, "This is my son." All right? All right. Comments or questions? Yes, tell me.
It just hit me to that. I thought it was a pretty neat thing that the great physician
Yeah,
at his birth was given 3 gifts.
there you go.
Either at the time
Right.
or eventually,
Yeah.
both up until the mid-80s. With
Yeah.
treatment rheumatoid arthritis. He was given 3 gifts.
Yeah.
at the medicinal meeting.
There you go. There you go. Very good point. Very good point. Y'all come on in. All right, everybody, have a fantastic rest of the evening. And tomorrow night, we're going to talk about the ministry of Jesus. It was different, too. How about that? I just read it. His ministry was different.
That's it about.
We'll see.
Thank you, James. Thank you. By the way, his trip to the temple,
Yeah.
that's his bar mitzvah.
Bar mitzvah, baby.
That's his bar mitzvah.
Here we go.
Well, they're coming to take your pulpit again.
Yeah.
Find adventure, so fix your eyes on gold. And the greatest treasure is your own soul. New life is found in Jesus, He's from discovery. Feels to be uncovered, take a look and see. Wonder Junction, the adventure's just begun. Wonder Junction, discover your own sun. Wonder Junction, find that which is true. Wonder Junction, it'll bring you back to you. Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. Lord and King, Almighty God, and closer than a friend. His reign goes on forever, come to eternity. His here to be discovered, and take a look and see. Wonder Junction, the adventure's just begun. Wonder Junction, discovery rising sun. Wonder Junction, find that which is true. Wonder Junction, it'll bring you back to you.
Well, who had fun tonight?
Oh, that was great. Who had fun tonight?
What was some of our favorite parts? Anybody want to talk about it? Graph games. What else?
To be with my friends.
Oh, being friends, always some good stuff over there.
What was your favorite?
Being with me.
Being with me?
Oh, science class. My favorite class was like the bowling.
The science class, so this playground to all the parents. I did not get them dirty. They actually were clean with some. They won't even have that pass. Does that sound good? Yeah!
Guys, obviously we learned about Jesus as a child today, didn't we? And everything that involved. And well, just like we've been learning, we got our preachers around. Last night we had Tiny join us. He was all the way back there, remember?
Yeah.
Anybody see Junior?
Junior!
Oh! Hey, I don't remember. How does Junior sound? That was some good howling.
Junior's going to be able to remind you of Jesus' childhood, just like Jesus, just like Tiny is. Jesus' birth. Ain't that true for a second? Well, guys, I gotta say, just like I've been playing, I'm all tired. I got a hunger. Y'all getting hungry?
I'm starving.
I heard we got some pretty good snacks going in the back today.
So, and you know what? Our friend Dylan, she wants to stand up here and lay our memory verse.
Oh, does she?
Before we get to dancing.
Well, I'm gonna leave that to her. I'm gonna run to the back for just a second. You go ahead.
All right, come on up here. All right, you ready? Rising of the sun to the going down of the same. The Lord's name is to be praised. Good job. Get ready to dance and sing our way out.
That's what I was gonna say. It's not better way to praise them than to wrap it up with one last song.
All right.
Hey, remember? Before we head out to snack, me and Carrie will get your passports. Everybody have your passports ready when the song's ready. We'll meet you in the back.
I will be about my Father's business. I will go. Go out and be a witness. I will pray. To love God every way. I will go. Walk with Him each day. Sally headed west. She had big hopes and dreams. No more seashells by the seashore. No more busy bus and street. Why would she leave her hometown? Leave her coming home, covered on fire. As though her like a meals went west. This is what she said. I will be about my Father's business. I will go. Go out and be a witness. I will pray. To love God every way. I will grow. Walk with Him each day. Austin said goodbye to Boston. Why did he choose to go? No more famous friends, my critters. Already famous, better. Why would he leave his brother? Or his sister really shows how he's on. As the flag of Bill been blessed. This is what he said. I will be about my Father's business. I will go. Go out and be a witness. I will pray. To love God every way. I will go. Walk with Him each day. I will be.
Yes, it's Sam. hands already.
Junior the wolf on there. Hey, look in the bag.
Yeah, I think I put it in that little bag.
Y'all have fun, enjoy your snack.
Hurry when you're staying.
Oh.
Hey, don't
She's
worry.
gonna think that.
You'll get it. You just leave it in here, but you'll get it at the end of the week when you're back, okay?
Am I cleaner? I'm like those little permanent dogs. There you go, why? It does.